We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Kenneally. Coming up in the program, we sit down with the state's lieutenant governor to talk about the healthcare workforce shortage here in Wisconsin. And later, we sit down with the outgoing CEO of YWCA Madison to talk about her legacy advocating for racial and gender equity in our community. But first this morning, we start with schools. The Madison School District is in the midst of hiring a permanent superintendent amid continued busing concerns frustrating parents and students alike. Now, earlier in the week, we sat down with the interim superintendent. Here's our conversation. So I want to first start with that superintendent search. We now have 3 finalists. They'll be interviewed in the coming weeks here. When parents and community members sit down and kind of vet these candidates or learn more about them, what should they be listening for?
So first of all, this is an incredible opportunity, I think, for our school district and for our community to get to pick the district's next permanent superintendent. And the Board of Education went through a very rigorous process to write the leadership profile based on feedback from our community and from community stakeholders. So it will be really interesting for our community now to hear from these finalists and see how their vision for the school districts aligns with that leadership profile that they developed. And next week will be the time when they can hear these 3 finalists share a little bit about themselves and their vision for the children and families in Madison.
So what goes into that leadership profile? What kind of challenges does the district face right now that you'd expect these new candidates to tackle?
So I think that there are a lot of opportunities right now that a new superintendent will get to embrace and get to figure out with the community and with the Board of Education. So I think that there is an intentional focus right now, a focus that I had coming in as the interim superintendent around early literacy practices and really strengthening how children are learning how to read and how those practices in classrooms are aligned to the science of reading. So there's a great opportunity for a new superintendent to come in, set that vision, set really important goals around proficiency and growth, and really key into what's happening in the classroom around reading strategy and how children are learning how to read. So that first and foremost is always top of mind, I think, for a new leader, that vision for learning, especially for students who have been historically underserved and who have the most opportunity gaps. So I would imagine our community is going to hear something about that from our superintendent. I also think our new superintendent has this incredible opportunity to be a part of our budget process and be a part of the development of our long-range facilities plan. So the school district will be talking about our long-range facilities plan over the course of the next several months as part of our budget process. So we've already unveiled a facility condition report, which essentially grades all of our buildings. And then we'll have an opportunity with the Board of Education and the community to look at what are the priorities in our schools that are aging. So it's a great opportunity for a new superintendent to come in and lend some vision to that as well, and come in with the community and find out what some of our communities want to see in some of our buildings that will support our young people as they go through our system.
So early in the year, the district had some issues with busing, certainly. Are those still prevalent issues? Are there long-term solutions that you'd be considering right now to kind of give parents that confidence going forward?
Absolutely. I knew you were going to ask me that question. So we had some bumps in the road at the beginning of the year around transportation. We know there is a nationwide driver shortage. That said, we couldn't just acknowledge that and not do anything. So we gave the system that we committed to a try, but it became clear that we did not have enough drivers, and First Student couldn't deliver on the system that we had really thought, with all best intentions, we could move forward with. So we had to make some difficult decisions. We studied where some of the issues were. We consolidated routes. We worked with schools and principals around some best practices around transportation, but it became, unfortunately, clear to us that we needed to make a change. And we gathered information from our internal transportation team around how we could really minimize the number of drivers needed and actually get students to school on time in a different model. So we ended up developing what was a modified third-tier system. So we ended up running three time frames of routes. And what it meant for us, and we knew this was going to be hard, but what it meant for us is we had to change some school start times. And it was really challenging. And we know it caused disruption to families. We know that it caused disruption to school staff, right? Children with families and daycare and work commitments. It was really, really hard. And we all acknowledge that, and I still to this day feel my own sort of remorse and you know, regret that that's the way that that had to happen. But we knew when we looked at it, and we tried 3 different versions of the modified 3-tier system. The first version impacted every child across every school, and we said, we got to go back, let's try it again. So we went back, we tried something else. We were almost there. And then we went to a 3rd tier. We involved our union stakeholders, we involved our transportation providers, and we ended up with the 3rd tier system that we're currently in. Not perfect, right? We had to move some start times back. Some schools had significant changes, but we knew that despite some short-term difficulties, and we had them, that those short-term difficulties we knew would lead to longer-term stability. So we do have much greater stability now. Not perfect, but we are much more stable now. What we're doing moving forward, and this is, I think, what people are wondering, what I think we're getting questions about is, so what about 24-25, the start of next year? So first of all, we are learning from what happened this year, right? We had to move to this 3rd-tier system in the matter of about 3 weeks. So not perfect, but we're going to do some learning. I think we want to do some surveys of how the community responded, how start times worked or didn't work for them. Also being honest that, there are some logistics that we can't work around. There are some logistics that we have to have in place in order to run a system. So families can expect, I think, a survey asking them some questions about what their experiences were, and then we want to come back to the school board in April with some details around planning and what families can expect in 24-25. So I'm looking forward to that. Our internal team is hard at work. What that looks like is our internal transportation team has to work with First Student, who we need. We need them as partners. We want to be good partners with them. We have to get our kids to school on the yellow school buses. We also have to partner with Metro for some of our high school students, and we partner with many of our taxi services for some of our other students. So right, the whole transportation system is something that we're taking a look at so we can make good recommendations to start off strong based on what we learned for 24-25.
Would it be fair to say to expect staggered start times for the next school year?
I would imagine that we are looking at somewhat of a tiered system again for 24-25. It will depend on the number of drivers that we can get. But we know more about this now, right? We engaged in the 3rd-tier system now, and I really feel like we are better informed going into 24-25. We know about First Student. We have a relationship with them. They have an infrastructure built to support Madison. So I do think we're well poised operationally to start off 24-25 strong. And I know that the new superintendent will be watching and learning, and it will be something that I also have an obligation to transition smoothly to the new superintendent to set that person up for success.
We'll be right back after this.